When I was talking about names I'd like to interview within the TNA world, you were definitely one that popped up. I love the music video, the smile, the claps. It's absolutely perfect. Talk to me about putting this whole thing together.
Well, in putting it together, the song has existed for 5 years, but it was only when I came to TNA that I think the all the elements came together. We redid the video. It was literally me and my brother with one tiny little camera, just running around Edinburgh. We filmed it at the same place I filmed so many of my videos. It's a place called Arthur's Seat in the heart of Edinburgh. And if you look at the video, there's a cool little Easter egg in it. At one point where I'm waving my hands at the end, it looks like it's CGI because it's just, you could never plan this, but a bird comes up and flies along beside me and just stays beside me in the stream of the wind while I'm waving my hand. So if you want to go and look for it, that's a little Easter egg that actually happened and we caught it on camera and it's in the video.
Well, I'll definitely go and hunt that Easter egg down. It's really fitting that I'm talking to you at the moment because my brother is a massive fan of yours, and we're constantly quoting your song to our mum because she does not watch professional wrestling. She asks, "Who is Joe Hendry?" Say, "Well, say his name and he'll appear." She's baffled. In the end, she decided to Google you. So she does know who you are now. But whilst your song has been rising up the charts, how do you feel that you've not just baffled my mum, but you've baffled a nation of people now listening to your song?
It's been a lot of fun. It's been incredible, and I think that professional wrestling is at its best when anything can happen. And I feel like I'm in one of those moments right now where it feels like anything can happen. If you'd have told me a couple of months ago that I would have had, a song at number 4 in the Big Top 40 in the UK, a song that was number 1 on iTunes in the UK, 6 in the US on iTunes, 1 in Malta, 2 in Ireland. It's ridiculous. If you'd have told me that a couple of months ago, it's just such a fun time to be a wrestler. It's a fun time to be a professional wrestling fan.
Have you had anybody within the world of music reach out to you about your song?
Uh, yes, would be the answer. Yes, is the only answer I can give right now. I do have some exciting ideas and plans for future releases. Ultimately, professional wrestling is my focus, but I think we've now proven that there's some room and some demand for me to be doing some musical releases, as long as it doesn't detract from my quest to get to the very top in TNA.
You're perfect. I'm excited to see what the future's going to hold. But your songs are about more than just your walkout song. Recently, you essentially abused AJ Francis with one of your songs. He'll never win the title, but he's the Cheez-It Champion, the best they've ever had. That is one of the greatest lines I think I've ever heard you.
He's yeah, the songs that we did with AJ, it was a lot of fun. The time just flew by. But I think what's really cool about that is if you look at it was a situation where all it was meant to be was just a one-off appearance, an in-ring interaction, and the fans were so entertained by what we were doing that now AJ is one of the core roster members in the company, and dare say I think we had the most talked about feud in the company.
Yeah, it was a fantastic feud. And once you've wronged somebody, in a sense, people like to apologize. And the fact that you did that's great. But your method of apologizing was quite interesting, suggesting that he should get fired because it's happened twice before. How did he take that?
How did AJ take that? Horribly. AJ took that horribly, as he does take a lot of my insults horribly. But he is a professional, and when he goes through the curtain, he does the job to the best of his ability. And as someone in my position, you're always looking for people to work with, and AJ has certainly delivered on his part of on. He's certainly delivered when it comes to his role in his feud with me.
Yeah, I think this feud is definitely iconic. You're capturing the imaginations of fans in TNA. What's it like for you to be a kid growing up in Scotland and to have gotten to a position now where you can wrestle in Philadelphia, for example, and the entire crowd is chanting "We Believe"?
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned Philadelphia because that really felt like the start of things kicking up to another level. That was when I went out there. I remember I lifted the microphone up to start speaking, and I had to bring the microphone back down because the crowd were chanting "We Believe" so loud. And in that moment, I think I felt it. I felt everyone felt it. That okay, something's kind of going on here. And then when I did the concert in Vegas, I think, I went out there and I knew that was a really tough segment. There's The Rock had just done a concert like it, so I had to bring something special to the table. And I knew that if it went, regardless of whether it went really well or really badly, my career would never be the same after that concert in Vegas.
You've had such an interesting journey because, unlike a lot of wrestlers, you have a very, very high caliber of an amateur background in terms of competing in Greco wrestling, in freestyle wrestling. I think you're even in the Commonwealth Games. So, can you tell me a little bit about the competitive side of wrestling that you've done?
So I didn't start that side of things until I was 26. I'd already started professional wrestling. And to be honest, I was working for a company called ICW, and I was sick and tired of losing every single match that I was in. And I knew that in order to be taken seriously as a competitor, I needed to prove that I could quite literally beat everyone up. So that's what I decided to do. I became a two-time national champion. I won the British Championships in both Greco and freestyle. And then I went on to the Commonwealth Games, and I did it alongside whilst being a professional wrestler. So yeah, it feels like a lifetime ago, but it was. I had a lot of people tell me not to do it because they said, you got to focus on pro wrestling. You got to, you might give up some years here. And do you know what? I maybe did give up a couple of years in terms of like how quickly I progressed through professional wrestling, because there was a couple of years where I was more focused on amateur wrestling. When I was doing What Culture, I would do a What Culture show in Manchester, and I would drive back up to Glasgow to do a training session in Glasgow with my amateur wrestling team, and then drive back down for the next show at What Culture. It was a wild time, but I have no regrets about doing it. Looking back, no one can ever take away from me the fact that I'm a two-time national champion in two different disciplines and represented my country at the Commonwealth Games after I started professional wrestling. And that takes balls. When you're a professional wrestler, to go out there and compete in that fashion, that takes balls. If you haven't done pro wrestling, you don't have the pressures of the fans looking on. But I did that when people in professional wrestling knew who I was.
No, certainly. It's interesting because you do get names who've done the sort of similar stuff that you've done, like your Brock Lesnar's and your Bobby Lashley's, who do amazing. And then you've got the CM Punks who have the balls to do it, but don't necessarily go on to that next level. But the fact that you have this background, do you think it strikes fear into the heart of TNA wrestlers when you go up against them?
I think having that background allows me to perhaps get away with a little bit more in terms of insults. That's what I'll say.
Very interesting. And obviously, your road at the moment is fantastic. Recently beating Eddie Edwards, a performance which was obviously great. Talk to me about that fundamental belief that you have in yourself.
It's hard to be a professional wrestler because you have to have this constant, almost delusional self-belief at the start. And having a delusional self-belief is almost helpful, but it's a very hard thing to do because you have to be humble enough to constantly work on your skills, but be so confident even when you don't have reason to be confident. And that's a really hard balance to strike. How can you be almost bordering arrogant, but at the same time be humble enough to improve your skills? That is a real challenge in professional wrestling. And the way I do it is the way I challenge my students to do it, which is you rate yourself honestly out of 10 for your look, your charisma, your match quality. Rate yourself on the components you think are important for professional wrestling, and just aim to improve yourself by a factor of 1 point out of 10 every 3 months. If you can do that, it won't be long before you're at the top of the card. And genuinely, that's the journey that I've been on, is just self-improvement.
Absolutely, because you've got the charisma side of things nailed down. You've got the song, you've got the in-ring performances. Everything's going well. What does the next chapter hold for Joe Hendry?
I want to be someone who can draw money for TNA wrestling. That's my goal, is to be a person that the company can look at and say, we can build a company around this person. This person, if we put this person on a show on a certain day at a certain time, it is going to draw fans to the building. That is what this business is about. In my mind, I look at someone like Jordan, who I think fits that bill. I look at what she's doing and the leadership that she and the excellence that she's shown recently, and I'm inspired by it. I think Jordan is the biggest star that we have, and I want to be right up there with her.
Fantastic stuff. I'd like to thank you, Joe, so much for giving me some time today. It's been really interesting to pick your brains, to talk all about your song, your growth in TNA, everything you've achieved in professional wrestling. But before I let you go, is there anything else that you would like to talk about?
I would just like to say that we have, next week we are in Chicago for Against All Odds. So I think it's going to be there's a lot going on. Again, professional wrestling is at its best when you have no idea what's going to happen next. And I think this is a very exciting time in TNA wrestling. So my advice to you is get yourself down to Chicago and see what we have to offer.